Hello, I'm Tebby Thrasher on that's Public Channel at YouTube. And I am back with the next installment in the Tank discography review. So after This Means War, which was released in 1983, it was given, just looking through the book right here, there's a little bit of a overview, kind of a biography. And it was said that it was actually liked. Some people liked it, some people didn't. Again, mixed reactions. However, the band definitely defends it and says that it's one of their best albums. And in some ways, it actually is. It was definitely a step up from Power of the Hunter, which was at times kind of lacking a bit. While having some good songs on there, wasn't nearly as strong as the debut. However, in 1984, what would bring the band? Well, of course, there's definitely some little disappointments. The Brabbs brothers decides to actually leave Tank, leaving only just Algy and Mick Tucker. Now they have to scatter around for both the secondary guitars, or maybe just have it just Mick Tucker and just get a different drummer. However, they do go and get a second guitarist, and his name is Cliff Evans. Yes. And then they also on board is a new drummer named Graeme Crallan, who was actually somewhat, I guess, friends with Mick Tucker. Was actually a colleague in Mick Tucker's other band that he was in, which was called White Spirit, which I did mention in the last video. So, having now 4 members, how would the follow-up album to This Means War end up being? Well, let's just put it this way. When the album was released, it apparently didn't do well. And as you can hear, a video was just done. Being done saved. Might edit that out. Whatever. It was not received well. It didn't do as good as the first This Means War. In ways, it was a commercial failure. So, it being a commercial failure, does that mean that this album actually sucks? Well, I'll tell you this. It's not a bad album at all. At times, I kind of think to myself, why is this album very underappreciated? Why was it a commercial failure? Well, let's definitely get into the overall album. Let's get into the first track, which is The World Drags Ever On. The War Drags Ever On. If you misheard me say world, you definitely might have not been mistaken. This song starts off with keyboards, synths, kind of similar to how Just Like Something from Hell kicked off This Means War, but it's a little differently, a little darker. But then you end up getting the sounds a bit of guitar muting. There's definitely some guitar in here, but it's just used as a bit of a adding overall atmosphere to it, a little more atmospheric. Not to say that Just Like Something from Hell with the synthesizers for that one was atmospheric. Here it's a little more atmospheric. As a way to build up, just like Something from Hell, it builds and builds and builds up to a monster of a song, and that is The War Drags Ever On, which is actually even heavier than Just Like Something from Hell. It's a little more thrashy at times, but it's definitely heavier. You can tell that the band isn't still has that melodic edge to them, like with the first album. It's definitely even evident with new second guitarist Cliff Evans adding his sort of sound to it, his own personality, his own edge to it, his own attitude into it. And Algy still retains his God damn it. Still has vocal style. God damn it. Gravelly. His gravelly vocal style is definitely still intact, but at times on this album, he definitely shows his more melodic side, his more emotional side, which is definitely something that ends up sticking with Algy. However, the next song is When Hell Freezes Over, which is a bit of a slower song, but still retains the heaviness. It's definitely, and it's probably next to one of my favorite songs off the album, and it's definitely one of the other reasons for why I really want to explore Tank's discography. It's definitely a good track. But then we get to the title track, which is Honor and Blood. And it's definitely also still melodic, but heavy. It's not nearly, it's probably a little more melodic than the song This Means War, but because in ways they're kind of similar, but not too similar. There's definitely more melodies into this. Then you also get some other tracks on here, such as Wasting My Life Away, or as you can see as titled on the back cover, it's WMLA. But then you also get Too Tired to Wait for Love, which is at times almost a ballad in ways, though it kind of seems like it could be either for WMLA. But they're both great. Like with Too Tired to Wait for Love, it's got a synth kind of starting into it, kind of still giving, I guess, the listeners like, oh shit, this is going to be the nail in the coffin. Nope. It's actually not a bad song as well. Still, there's not as Crocus or AC/DC feel songs on this one. It's just more straightforward, heavy metal. But then you got the last song on here as well, which is Kill, which is again, just like how This Means War ended, where both, or just kind of like similar to what This Means War, where it first started with a 7-minute long and ended with the 7-minute long. Here, the war drags of it on is almost somewhere around 8 minutes at times. But Kill, it's almost kind of similar, but more 7-minute. But still a heavy track. However, there is an odd song on this album. Maybe this is one of the reasons the album might have failed. There's a cover on here. It's not the first time Algy decided to put a cover on one of the Tank albums. Let's go back to Power of the Hunter. The song, the Osmond song, Crazy Horses, was definitely a bit of an odd choice, but it worked. What about with this cover, which is a cover of Aretha Franklin's Chain of Fools, which is an odd cover, but yet it works. It's almost similar to how Judas Priest would take some sort of like either a folk song like Joan Baez's Diamonds and Rust and make into a very rock-like song, or even take a very psychedelic-like tracks such as Fleetwood Mac's Agreementalashi and turn it to a monster of a song, or maybe even similar to even Spooky Tooth's Better By You, Better Than Me, and just make it almost their own, but still kind of keeping true to it. Here, Tank takes a 60s soul classic and turn it into a heavy metal song, which is, it's almost brilliant in ways to actually do something like that, to even pull an idea like that off, and in some ways it actually benefits the band. even though it's an odd song on the album, it's actually also a great track. So with that all said, does this really... Did this album really needed to be a failure? Why did this album become such a commercial failure? Because what? The band, instead of keeping the sort of melodic like style that was presented on This Means War, and kind of ditching some of that, but still keeping some of the melody, but just going for a more heavier sound. Because even though this album isn't close to the very punky like attitude of Filth Hounds of Hades, it's still a very good, and for 1984 it fits within that era of that year. At times it's almost similar to even Judas Priest's same album that was released on that year, which was Defenders of the Faith. It's similar a bit. While it might be a much stronger album than Defenders, it still is a underappreciated album. Now, even though the band does defend the album, you do get some people nowadays that say that's a bit of a lackluster album. You got some that like it, and you get just some that just fucking dislike it or even just to some extent loathe it. However, it doesn't really need all of that type of it. Is an album that really kind of deserves that type of respect. Even though there probably isn't any respect towards this album. Even though I think it's a great album, I think it's a very underappreciated album, and in ways it's actually a bit stronger than the This Means War album. Sure, it's definitely not as catchy sounding as This Means War. There's definitely still some great songs on this album. However, this will be the band's, at least at the time, they would take a break. There would be a 2-year gap before they would release a new album, which would definitely come in the year of 1987. So with that, what would the future bring? What would 1987 react to Tank? What will it treat the band? Until then, what did you really think of Honor and Blood? Is this an album that you really do like? Is this probably one of your favorite Tank albums? Do you think it's a very underappreciated album? Or do you think it's a piece of shit? What is your true, honest opinion on this album? I'm definitely curious. Anyways, this is W Thrasher saying I am out, and I will be back with another installment in the Tank Discography Review. Until then, Heavy Thrashed is saying I'm out. Now I'm just fucking with you. I'm not gonna do it like that in the last video. Could be dinner. I don't know. I'm gonna see.